For years, I was completely trapped. I was stuck in this relentless cycle of anxiety and exhaustion, and I couldn't make a single decision without my mind just spiraling. I honestly thought it was just part of my personality to overthink everything, but I was wrong. It was a one-way ticket to burnout, and today, I'm going to share the story of how I figured out the hidden link between the two, and the simple method I used to get my life back. Section 1. The Spiral of Overthinking. It started so quietly I didn't even notice. At first, it just felt like I was being diligent, rereading an email for the 10th time to make sure the tone was perfect, or lying in bed at night, replaying a conversation from work, analyzing every single word, every silence, wondering if I'd said the wrong thing. People would call me thorough, meticulous, a high performer, and I wore those labels like a badge of honor. But underneath all that, something else was growing. This so-called diligence started to bleed into every corner of my life. Soon, it wasn't just about work. It was everything. What should I eat for dinner? A question that simple would kick off a chain reaction of analysis. I'd weigh the health benefits, the cost, the prep time, what I ate yesterday, what I should eat tomorrow, until I was so mentally wiped out by the process that I'd just grab whatever was easiest and feel this weird sense of defeat over a meal. My brain felt like a browser with 100 tabs open, all playing different videos at full volume. There was no peace, no quiet, just constant, nagging, repetitive thought. This is the classic signature of overthinking, which experts call cognitive rumination. It's not productive problem solving. It's like a broken record of worry that never finds a solution. It's that mental habit of replaying past mistakes, endlessly worrying about the future, and chasing this impossible sense of certainty in every decision you make. It felt like my mind was trying to protect me, to keep me from messing up, but what it was really doing was paralyzing me. This is what's known as analysis paralysis, that state where you are so stuck in your head, weighing every single what if, that you can't move forward at all. My weekends, which should have been for recharging, just became performance reviews of my week. Did I do enough? Was my boss happy with my report? What about that offhand comment a colleague made on Tuesday? Was it a joke, or was there more to it? I was treating my entire life like a project that needed to be managed, constantly checking in on myself. Am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? This constant self-surveillance felt like self-awareness, but it was really a form of self-consciousness that was incredibly draining. I started avoiding social situations, not because I didn't want to see my friends, but because the mental energy it took to show up, participate, and then analyze the entire event afterward was just too much. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, physically there, but mentally absent, trapped in the loud, relentless theater of my own mind. I thought this was just a personality quirk, a sign that I was a deep thinker who cared a lot. I had no idea that this mental engine, running at full throttle, 24/7, was burning through my fuel at a rate I couldn't sustain. I didn't realize that my brain, stuck in this loop, was consuming massive amounts of energy. Overthinking wasn't just a bad habit. It was the silent architect of my own collapse. Section 2. The Crash. When overthinking becomes burnout. And that collapse, when it finally came, felt all-consuming. It wasn't one big, dramatic explosion, but a slow, creeping fire that eroded my entire sense of self. That's the sneaky thing about burnout. It builds so gradually, you don't recognize it until you're completely engulfed. The chronic overthinking was the kindling, and the pressures of life and work were the spark. It started with a deep, bone-crushing exhaustion, not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. This was a soul-level fatigue that was there when I woke up and clung to me all day like a wet coat. No matter how much I rested, I felt tired. Then my brain started to feel foggy. I, the person who prided myself on being sharp, started struggling to concentrate. Reading a simple report felt like trying to decode a foreign language. I'd forget what I was doing mid-task. Simple decisions, which were already a battleground, now felt monumental and completely overwhelming. This is the hidden connection I was talking about. Overthinking is a massive mental workout that keeps your brain in a constant state of high alert. And this isn't just a feeling. It's physically real. It revs up the activity in your brain's threat center, the amygdala, and keeps stress hormones like cortisol pumping through your system. Your body is basically stuck in fight-or-flight mode. That constant mental strain is incredibly draining, and over time, it leads directly to the core symptoms of burnout: emotional exhaustion, physical fatigue, and that feeling of being mentally worn out. My overthinking wasn't just in my head anymore. It had become a full-body crisis. The emotional side was just as bad. I felt numb and totally detached from my work and, honestly, from my life. Things that used to bring me joy, hobbies, a walk in the park, dinner with friends, just felt like more chores on the to-do list. I started to pull away, telling people I was just too busy, when the truth was, I was just too overwhelmed. My patience was gone. I'd snap at loved ones over the smallest things, not because I was angry at them, but because my ability to handle any more stimulation was completely shot. The real rock-bottom moment for me wasn't loud. It was a quiet, terrifying implosion. I was sitting in my car before a big meeting, one I had obsessed over 4 weeks, and I just couldn't get out. My heart was pounding, my hands were sweating, and the thought of walking into that room and having to perform felt physically impossible. I had spent so much time analyzing every possible outcome that I had completely exhausted myself before the event even started. I felt like a failure, an imposter. That's when it finally hit me. I wasn't just stressed, I wasn't just a worrier, I was burned out. My constant overthinking had literally driven me into the ground. I realized that overthinking and burnout weren't two separate problems. They were a vicious cycle, feeding each other. The overthinking fueled the burnout, and the burnout made me feel so useless that I overthought everything even more. Sitting in that car, I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. Something had to change. Section 3. The turning point and the method. The turning point came when I finally admitted, painfully, that my whole approach to life was broken. I had always believed that if I just thought harder, planned better, and analyzed more, I could control everything and avoid failure. But that belief was the very thing that caused me to crash. Recovery wasn't about finding a new way to hustle. It was about learning how to stop. It was about building a simple, repeatable method to take back my mental space and my life. So, what did I actually do? It wasn't a magic bullet, but a conscious 4-part practice I put together over time. First, I created what I call the asterisk circuit breaker. Overthinking is a habit, a deep groove in your brain. The more you do it, the easier it is to fall back into it. The only way to stop a spiral is to interrupt it forcefully. My circuit breaker was a physical action I took the second I felt my thoughts start to loop. Sometimes it was as simple as standing up, walking to a window, and describing 5 things I could see out loud. I see a red car. I see a tall tree. I see a person walking a dog. It sounds almost stupidly simple, but it works by yanking your brain out of the world of worry and grounding it in the physical present. Other times, I'd use the 5-second rule. The moment I caught myself hesitating or spiraling, I'd count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move. Hit send on the email. Get up from my desk. Make the call. The key is to act before your brain can talk you out of it. Overthinking dies when you take action. Second, I established hard boundaries. Burnout is often what happens when you have 0 boundaries between work and rest. My overthinking meant that even when I wasn't physically working, my brain was on the clock. So I set clear, non-negotiable rules. No work emails on my phone. The workday ended at 6 p.m. and the laptop was closed, period. At first, this was incredibly stressful. I was terrified of missing something important or being seen as a slacker. But I learned that these boundaries weren't about neglecting my job. They were about protecting my ability to show up as a functional person. Learning to say no to things freed up so much mental and emotional energy. Third, I adopted the good enough principle. A huge driver of my overthinking was perfectionism, that deep fear that if something wasn't flawless, it was a failure. I had to consciously retrain my brain to accept good enough. This meant sending the email when it was 85% perfect, instead of agonizing for another hour over the last 15%. It meant recognizing that a finished project with a tiny flaw is infinitely better than a perfect project that never sees the light of day because of analysis paralysis. I started asking myself one question. In 24 hours, will anyone but me even notice this? 99% of the time, the answer was no. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic with your energy. It's about seeing mistakes not as disasters, but as data. Finally, and this is the most important one, I embraced non-negotiable recharge. I used to see self-care as a luxury, something you earn after all the work is done. That is a fundamentally broken way to look at it. Rest is not a reward. It is a requirement for you to function. Sleep, nutrition, and real downtime are not optional. I started scheduling rest with the same seriousness as a client meeting. That meant a non-negotiable 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It meant taking a real lunch break away from my desk. And it meant scheduling do-nothing time into my weekends time, with no agenda, no to-do list, where I could just be. I also started doing mindfulness practices and gentle movement, like a short walk without my phone, not as another thing to get right, but just as a way to connect with my body and quiet my mind. This 4-part method, the circuit breaker, hard boundaries, the good enough principle, and non-negotiable recharge, wasn't an overnight fix. It is still a daily practice. It's a conscious choice, every day, to manage my thoughts instead of letting them manage me. It's how I broke the cycle and finally started to heal. That was my journey and the method that helped me get my life back. But I know everyone's path is different, and I know how isolating this can feel. That's why building a community around this stuff is so important. I genuinely want to hear from you. What part of this story hit home for you? What are some things that have helped you deal with overthinking or burnout? Please share your story in the comments below. Your experience could be the one thing that helps someone else feel less alone today and gives them a little hope. Let's help each other figure this out. If you've watched this far, chances are you see a little bit of yourself in this story. The most important thing I want you to take away is this: you are not broken. Your mind is not your enemy. And overthinking is not a permanent part of your personality. It is a mental pattern, and patterns can be unlearned. For years, I believed my value was tied to how productive I was, to how much I could analyze and perfect and control. The great irony is that this exact mindset was destroying my ability to produce anything at all, let alone live a happy life. The journey out of burnout isn't about finding new ways to push harder. It's about giving yourself permission to be human. It's accepting that you can't control everything, that good enough is a powerful and healthy place to be, and that rest is not weakness, it is a fundamental act of self-preservation. Look, recovery isn't a straight line. There will be days when the old thought patterns creep back in, but now you have the awareness to recognize them for what they are: just thoughts, not facts. You have the power to interrupt the spiral, to hold your boundaries, and to be kind to yourself. You are not alone in this, and healing is absolutely possible. Thanks for watching.